So I appreciate you guys taking the time today. I think I sent this out to everyone, but we do have a new commissioner. Her name is Caitlin Hedberg. I invited her to this meeting. She wasn't on the original one, so I put a spot here for her. I know that she had been in the audience a couple times. She's been kind of watching this before she said, yeah, I'll do that because based on your behavior.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, this is actually Caitlin. I'm on the phone. My apologies, I actually am in Anchorage. I'm not able to make it over a transit time, so I wish I could be in person for my first actual meeting as well when I'm on the phone.
Excellent. I was just letting these guys know that you didn't scare them away, so thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to having Caitlin on board. So I think, let's see if maybe Lila can send you the presentation. They got it. So what I wanted to do today, guys, is run through with a little bit more detail on the departments. I was telling Nolan, it is virtually impossible when you have a day job and everything else to go through and read the operating budget, the capital budget, and the utility budget with a huge amount of detail. So,
and you have a day job, right, Lance?
This is my day job. Yeah, somebody came last week. Apparently, it was Boss's Day, and I got this amazing thing of chocolate and more chocolate, and they're like, "It's Boss's Day." I'm like, "Well, hell, every day would be his Boss's Day." So, all 5 of us. What I was going to do was run through all of the departments, but only talk about a couple slides and then talk about the capital budget. What I would like you guys to do is find either, and this is up to the chair, either find a department that you are interested in that you would like to report on to the rest of the commission, or as a commission, find a group of departments that you really want to spend some time on. You have some questions. And then in the next couple weeks, you either can take away some homework and look at that stuff, and then on the 7th or at another meeting, because this is the busy, busy time, you guys can, at the end, form a position on the budget. So I'm going to go through these relatively quick. I will try to highlight what I think is important. I spent 4 hours last week and 4 hours tomorrow doing what we're going to do in the next 55 minutes. So this will keep me sharp. So what I did last week is we talked about primarily the busiest departments, the ones with the biggest budgets, and the ones that have the most, probably the most interest. And so I'm going to rock through these. You guys should have a packet. You should have 2 packets. My slides are not going to look exactly like your packet because this is the presentation I did. I didn't mess around with my presentation, but the information will be the same, so I have some extras. So this, again, this is the summary slide of the budget. You guys have seen this one. The next 10 are the summary slides, so I won't spend a lot of time. If you guys have questions about budget and changes, one thing that Nolan mentioned that I think is worth repeating at the Assembly's Budget and Finance Committee that I didn't recognize is that the total amount of our budget increase is less than CPI. And frankly, I went back 3 years, and it's been less than CPI. So the amount of increase in our total budget is less than CPI. So, and I know, and if you guys have questions after this, I know Carla may have some, call me. We'll spend some other time and rock them right through this. So we won't talk, I showed them where the money's coming from. This is, I think, an important slide. Basically, 40% of our budget's in public safety. These were the mayor's priorities, and we'll talk a little bit about each one of these when we get to the departments. These should look familiar to you guys. These are the position changes. Primarily, they're in police and parks and property appraisal. So on the capital overview, you guys following along? On the capital overview, we basically have about a $60 million bond. The key to this one is that $2.2 million of this will be for Girdwood. They'll have their own separate ballot proposition, and I'll talk a little bit about the capital projects as well. One of the things that I think is important that Jason Bachenstedt had presented to the Assembly, and Ona and I shared with the Assembly is and this is in our budget book, in comparison from 2009 to 2014, 2009 to 2014, we had almost $600 million coming to Anchorage for capital improvements. Since 2015, we've had $22,500,000. $22 million is for the port, and basically $500,000 is from this year, where the state is going to give us a grant to take over the ownership of streetlights that they don't want to put in on Jewel Lake Road. So they're going to give us $500,000 so that we can maintain them for the next 20 years. That's the sum of the two projects in the last, since 2015. So there's been a lot of recent interest that our bond number is too low. There's a lot of goods and bads about that. Practically, in practice, in the past, what we've been doing is we have been only issuing what we've been, putting out what we've been returning. But that was in the days when we had a hell of a lot more capital money.
This is my wife.
Oh,
She's
okay.
taking this one.
Excellent. I was like, hey, we have a vacancy on the Budget Advisory Commission. Sit right there and we'll get you a nameplate. All right, let's rock and roll through the departments. She's stealing a baby. Is that all good? We gotta. All right. You know, security's going to check you out because you didn't come in with one of those.
Oh, they questioned me when I came in.
Oh, did you? Well, tell Mike and Vang to chill out. So, in the police department, and these are the sheets that I would like you guys to spend some time with when you look at the departments. These are the sheets. They're in every single department. This one's for police. It tells you the difference of what's changing in every single department. Okay? Does everyone have this police one in front of them as an example? Okay. The way these sheets work are this. The top line is the amount of the police budget at revised budget. Again, we approve a budget, we revise it. What we do in April, that is the budget that all the departments live with for all of 2019. So at and for the police department, it was probably the exact same, I don't know. But they have 118 million in 2019, 602 people. When we build a budget, we build a continuation budget. If we give any department one-time money, when we go to the next year, we take away the one-time money because it doesn't continue. So in the police department, they had one-time money for an academy, one-time money for legal fees. In the debt service, they basically, if they had any bond debt last year, charges or any changes there, and all departments have these, we adjust those. Then what we do is once we take out those one-time things, we start with ground zero, and then we make adjustments for every single department. That basically says, okay, your continuation budget, all of you folks are in the police department, and you all make, $50,000 a year. But next year you get a 1% raise. So what we do is the next thing we do for all the police department is we take whatever the bargaining unit or bargaining units are, and if they have an agreement that goes through next year, we apply that interest. Or if Jimmy is a recent graduate and he's going to get a step increase, in June, we automatically load that in because we know he graduated and he's due for a step increase. We do that for him and all of the 2,700 people in the municipality. We know when their step is, what time of the year, and then from that point after, we up it. So that's what the salaries and adjustments are. And then any changes in staff. The fleet, one of the things that we're doing for police is we're going to bond for fleet vehicles. So there's an adjustment in how they manage, how they get into their fleet. I won't go into a lot of detail, but if that's of interest to you, we can get into it. And then the rest of the stuff is changes that we're making for the police department. That's continuation. We know that they have a DUI evidence towing contract. The contract was I don't know what it was last year, $300,000, and it's 100 and something next year. So we add that increase into their budget. The stuff on the bottom of this sheet and every department is the things we're adding to 2020 for a department. So And they may be one-time things, they may be continuation things. For the police department, we're going to do a proposed academy of $350,000. The administration this year did a policy change. Since he's been in office, academies have been one-time ads every year, and then we take them out and then we add them in. The mayor has basically said from now on, I want to make academies a continual funding source. So next year in 2021, that'll be part of their continuation budget. It will not be an addition. And it's just for attrition. It's the same thing that you're going to see for the fire department. So that's a change. For the police department, we're going to add 6 non-sworn positions. They're probably going to go into dispatch, but the chief can put them into evidence or clerks. But the dispatch. Also, we're going to add 4 new patrol officers to the police department. The chief can put them anywhere where the need is. If they have high spike in crime or whatever it may be, the intention of this one here is they would have 4 additional people that would be dedicated or assigned, for lack of a better word, to trail safety. However, that might not be every single day. There may be days when they have 2 people on there if they have an emergency. So anyway, they're going to allocate that, but that's the intent there. So that the police department will get 10 people, 6 in dispatch, and 4 more patrol officers that will be straight to trail safety, trail patrol. It's been called a variety of things, but the intent here is they would work in pairs of 2, and then they would patrol the trails. At the assembly meeting, someone asked the police department, and then it got into a rhythm for the rest of the assembly, Chief, if you could have anything you want, what would you want? He said, I want to double the police force. I have 400 officers, I need 600. Then they went into the fire department. And the chief said, I need another, and then, so, where the assembly was interested is, tell us what you need. And what my response was is that, yeah, that's nice. I get hundreds of millions of dollars requests, but we ought to manage with what we have. But they are thoughtful of that. So, hello?
Oh, hi, this is Lindsay. Sorry.
That's okay. Hey, Lindsay. Caitlin, are you still on?
Hi.
Okay. So this last
I
one?
am still here. I'm sorry. I was on mute.
That's okay. This last one with police, with Girdwood, the Girdwood community has a contract with Whittier for policing. There is an increased cost in the rent of how that works. Girdwood pays that assessment, but we put the money in the police department budget. Okay? So the police department inside your operating budget, there's a lot of information in there, but that's what's going on with police.
Really quick glance,
Yeah.
just for my curiosity, does Anchorage School District pay for their SROs or their resource officers?
I don't think they do, but I can verify.
They're
that.
under the APD budget.
They are. And there was some conversations about how, and I can look at the notes, but there were some conversations about SROs at the assembly. So on the fire department, similar thing. They get a budget as of 1Q. They had one-time academy costs last year. They had some obligation bond stuff. When you look at all the fire department, and this $1 million, the fire department's contract is up in June of 30 next year. And because their contract runs from middle of year to middle of year. Many of them run calendar to calendar. They are in a 0% raise inside their current contract for this year. So for January through June, it's a 0%. That number is the amount of money just for Carla, who's a fireman, or woman, right? She is in year 4. She goes to year 5. The contract requires that she gets a pay increase or an enhancement or something like that. That's what that is. And then Alyssa would be the same thing. If she's due for a rate increase or she goes from a grade of a firefighter to another grade, these are just step increases. That's not a percent increase in your base salary. So that's what that million is about. And then the police and fire retirement. Police and fire are the only ones that have these. These are individuals who are in a retirement program that primarily don't work at the city anymore. There's not very many. There's maybe a handful in police and fire, but these are retired police and fire are in a retirement program that was set up for them. Okay, it's not Carla and Alyssa who are current. just are 4 years into the service. Similar to the police department, the administration has basically said, we're going to make attrition academies consistent. We're going to add them in, but you'll notice that in 2020, the academy costs are $1.2 million. You'll notice at the top, the one-time academy cost was $300,000. Okay. The cost of running an academy is about $1.2 million. So what happened is the fire department, and many of you have heard, the fire department's running hot this year. They're running over. Part of the reason they're running over is they spent $1 million on academy with a $300,000 budget.
Why is the academy 4 times the amount as police academy?
So that's an excellent question. I have a response to you that I will share with you that I just got because the assembly asked it, and it's broken down by personnel, by equipment, because the assembly asked, break down the cost for a police academy and break down the cost for a fire academy, and what's the money being used for. I will share that with you guys. So that's what's going on with the fire department. There's a lot of discussion on the fire department, housing and homelessness, and ML&P. The Assembly has set a special meeting to talk about those 3 things on October 30th. It's a 2-hour work session just to talk about those 3. So on the capital side of the fire department, so that's in the capital budget, the fire department, they basically, all of these activities are inside fire, but when we put the bonds together, you're going to see a fire bond and an area-wide public safety. Ambulances are area-wide. Fire trucks are not. So the ambulance and the ambulance replacement will be an area-wide service with transit and a variety of other things. The fire truck, the ladder truck, will be $1.4 million. If you want to know if you guys have questions about each one of these things, I can lay in. I can give you more detail. The shop expansion, the shop that they have was built in 1984. It's by Alaska Regional, old Fire Station 3. We've built a lot more fire stations, have a lot more equipment. The thing needs a lot of improvement. This is a design hit to figure out exactly what the size and cost will be. When you look in the out years, you'll see about a $4.5 to $5 million estimated construction hit. So that's what you'll see there. PM&E, Project Management Engineering. Project Management Engineering has about 52 people in it, or maybe 42 people. However, only 8 of them are supported in part by property taxes. The other 40 are supported by bond projects. If you work at Project Management Engineering and you're a project manager on Maple Street, you charge your time to the bond. Okay, it has always been like that. Always. So if you work it's like working for a consulting firm. If you work for a consulting firm and Jed is working on the Chester Creek Trail extension, he's going to charge his time to Chester Creek Trail extension. He may also be working on a landscaping improvement at some other location. He works on that project. He charges to that. PM&E people do the exact same thing. So in SAP, we had to take those people out of the budget, because SAP doesn't allow us to charge to capital and move to operating, and it's just a mad. So we took them out. So project management engineering has a lot of project folks that are inside their body count, but the only part that's related to the operating budget is these are in watershed management. These 8. So. This is a snapshot of the capital projects this is 37 million 37.5 of the road bond that would be on. So if you guys have questions about this capital project, if you're interested in the capital program and you want to know a little bit about it, this is the most of it. Or you can look in the first couple pages of the CIB. It will tell you the projects by department and the amounts. I will tell you, the one project that's getting a lot of conversations at an assembly right now is the 4th one down, Academy Drive Vanguard, area circulation for $4 million. Anybody, you guys familiar with that one? You know where that one is? If you are on the Seward Highway and you go past Diamond and you keep going south, when you get to basically right where the Texas Roadhouse barbecue place is, the next street that would cross the Seward Highway is called Scooter or 92nd. It would connect the old Seward Highway under the Seward Highway over to Abbott Loop through the S. So over by R&M Consultants, by the soccer fields, by the church. So this project here, the reason it's on here is that the DOT is going to build, right now, their initial plans are to build an underpass. But they're not planning to build the road that connects either side. They're just going to build the ramps off the highway. So if we don't do that, we're going to have potentially some problems on Academy Drive. The reason that this one has got the Assembly's attention is that we have $3 million in right-of-way. That's $4 million in right-of-way. Next year we have another hit of money in right-of-way before we get to an $8 million construction job. The Assembly's deciding whether or not they want to keep this one in. This one's got a lot of attention. So basically DOT's creating a traffic issue, and they're basically just drawing their lines right on the side of the highway, but that one's getting a lot of attention. Don't know how it's going to turn out. Maintenance and operations. This is the department that basically plows the streets, maintains our fleet. They maintain our communication system. They maintain our buildings, at least the ones we own. Real estate manages the ones that we don't own, like this one. But M&O, the other thing about M&O, their entire operating budget, $88 million. But when you look at the debt service, $47 million of the $57 million in debt service, which is for roads, is in M&O. So they have an $88 million budget, but they only have a $42 million budget that they can work on. Okay, so I don't know if there's anything sexy in here. If you find something you like, let me know. I mean, there's some money for paying for the utilities and some money to pay for parts. I know, right? That's what I think. M&O. Yeah, I know. On the capital side, so inside the bonds, the stuff that has to do with vertical, that's where this stuff is. So in M&O, if we have an area-wide bond, which we will, they will be the ones in charge of managing the improvements to the senior centers, Anchorage and Eagle River. They will also be the one to manage the fleet. If we put out a bond to replace 36 cop cars, it would probably be in a police bond, but this department will manage it because they manage the fleet. But since there'll be cop cars in the police service area, not area-wide, that's why it will be probably on the police one. The one question that came up on this one is, how do we handle the bond debt indebtedness? Because now we are serving police service on Turnagain Arm. And last year we weren't. Or the last time we did this, we weren't. Does that make sense? Because right now, the police service area and how they pay for that bond is a big thing.
So that was the Girdwood Whittier contract. That was at one point the state paying that, and now it's the beauty.
What was happening is that the state was providing troopers, and the troopers went away, and they needed police service, so they contracted with Whittier Police to provide police protection inside Girdwood. But along Turnagain Arm, when the troopers went away, there was no protection, no police coverage. So we extended, and now we have police protection, APD officers on Turnagain Arm, which was originally outside the police service area. But we modified.
So it's always been the beauty footing that building.
It was always the troopers.
I mean, after the troopers, then it was the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. How you doing, Mayor?
Checking it out.
These guys are super smart. I'm going to give them in 55 minutes what took me an hour to do, 4 hours to do last Friday.
So the comparison is like not even.
I'm not even going to touch it. Here we go. So then we talked about Girdwood, Glacier Valley. And again, if you have questions about what they're doing or the detail, look in the capital budget. Okay, time for your 15-minute break. Good enough. So now I've got to change shows and go to another show here to grab the other slides.
Okay, Lance,
Yep.
can you talk about whether there's any angst or anxiety over the amount of the bond
Right now,
proposals, or what kind of discussion has been happening with that?
I can. I think the so we this question there is no formula to how much bond we put out. It's an administrative executive call. In the past, as I mentioned, the bond limit has been set to the amount that we retire, or plus or minus. We had a priority list coming from departments for bonded projects at $81 million. That's what came to my office. Sat down with the administration that end of the building and said it's too much. The number needs to be under 60 at a minimum. So we came to them with a number that was what we thought met that objective.
What was the bond last year? Do you remember?
It was 50. The bond was 57, but the area-wide facility bonds failed. So what we actually passed was about 54 million. We had a bond for the elevators. Anyway, we had those, and they passed. So the Planning and Zoning Commission has asked this question about what's the tolerance? What's the number that it should be? And the Assembly asked the question. If we're not meeting our needs, what should the number be? I think each department is very sensitive to putting together a program that meets the priority needs that is successful. I can tell you Parks is very sensitive about having a Parks bond more than $4 million. They really do not think it will pass. I don't know what's magic about that, except that when they had one that was $4,100,000, it failed like by 3 points. And every one they've had that's been under $4 million for the last 5 years has passed by like 5. So honestly, Jed, I don't know.
Yeah.
There is talk about making, at least the school district and I have talked about a conversation about having bond holidays, but having one really, really big bond. The dilemma with that, like over $100 million. The good news about that is that if you're in parks or planning or in the construction industry or in the design world, you put $100 million out and it passes, you know that there is projects going on for the next 5 years, and then you don't bond for anything. The downside is if they fail, there's no public investment work going on, or very, very little. So it is right now. It is a call. It's a call between this end of the building and the Assembly and the voters.
Yeah.
Lance, is there any structural ability to have both? Do you have a 3.9 and $100 million, and the 3.9s continue on the $100 million passing or failing?
Yeah, you could totally do that. There's no prohibition. Yep, you could totally do that. We thought about yes. Yep. And the interesting thing is there's communities that do it and they're successful, but the reason they're successful is if you do it and you say we're going to build these projects, and whether you do it with bond or some other revenue like the Matsu has done, you say we're going to do these 4 projects, we need $50 million, and 3 years later they're done. And that's it. And then you go back to them and say, we did it, it passed, we proved it, and you go on. But if you say you're going to do $50 million worth of bonds, you're going to do 3 projects, and it takes 7 years to get them done. So you're going to lose the patience or the faith of the voters. So we also have to pick stuff that can get done, not pick stuff that looks sexy. And we can do that. And we could do both. But I like door number 1. Okay, so again, apologize. So next slide you guys should have is transit. Are you following along? Am I boring the heck out of you? Is this good? Is it too much? Again, I'm saving you hours and hours of sleepless nights reading 1,300 pages. So, transit. Revised budget, 195 obligations. They have a huge jump in their salaries, benefits, adjustments. It's not because they're getting big raises. What happened was, in 2019, actually in 2018, we had a contract with a vendor that ran out in the middle of 19, that runs out in the middle of 19, to provide basically the neighborhood route service. And it was being funded by a grant. The grant's going away. We also decided that we want to keep the service and we're going to bring it in-house. So in 19, we funded transit for half of that year, $700,000 for 16 drivers. In 20, we have to cover the entire cost of those 16 operators, plus the other 150 positions inside their budget, whether their contracts require labor increases or benefit increases. So the total amount of the 16 plus everybody else is the $1.3 million. The last one is a change, is $185,000. Transit gets mental health trust money from the state they use to match federal grants. The mental health trust money is going away. So we're going to give them some money to match the grant.
Do you have documented somewhere, like all these little bits of, we're spending this because the state funding, did you compile that somewhere? Do you know, can you tell us the total cost of all these state programs went away, and this is the total cost of them?
We do. We do. It's not in the budget book. We did it. Yes, we have it. So I will, if you remind me to do that. So in the transit world, long and short, the group of projects are pretty much the same as they have. They have an opportunity to get a lot more federal money than they've had in the past. This is $2 million gets you 12.6. Again, a lot of detail in there. Oh, the other thing I should send these guys is the list of the description of the capital projects I sent planning and zoning and the assembly. What I'm talking to Lila about is for each one of these capital projects, I summarized on like 8 or 9 pages what each project is and which phase it's going to be in. I will send that to you when we're done. So transit, traffic, nothing sexy going on in traffic. Their capital projects are going to show up in the road bond, but nothing big here. I think one of the assembly members asked, are we looking at the school zone safety program with the district? We have, but it requires the district's cooperation. And, the district has not had someone in that position as they did when I was in traffic or in transit to help support it. They do now, so the Safe Routes Through Schools program is kicking back up. Public Works admin, there's 17 people. It doesn't cost them $12 million. The art of this one is that all of the road service area budgets, all of the limited road service areas, including Chugiak, Eagle River, CB Ursa, all of the money that's in those service areas is inside their budget. That's where it's managed. Okay? The health department. I apologize for this one being so small, but there's a lot going on in the health department. This is, as I mentioned, this will be one of the topics that the Assembly is going to deep into on the 30th, and we'll rock and roll through that. So, anyway, long and short of this one is we have $550,000 that was one time last year. We're going to add back in for the mobile intervention team. There's $250,000 in here that would match, depending on how much of the $40 million that the private nonprofit folks are going to contribute to addressing homeless over a 5 to 8 year period. If there's an opportunity to provide a match for a facility, whether it be in Midtown or some other location, this budget, this is a placeholder, if you will, to do that, to provide a shelter, another shelter in Midtown. And I don't know what it would be. The Stolt building, for those of you who are not familiar, that is on 3rd Avenue as you go down the hill on the right-hand side. As you go down the 3rd Avenue, as you go down the hill, I think it's past Carlick, and you start to turn past the jail, it's the property on the right. HR. This is one of the things that we're doing in HR is the municipal manager has made a commitment to the assembly that we are going to audit everyone's payroll, everybody's payroll since SAP went live. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with ML&P because we need to make sure that everybody was paid correctly, they weren't under or over, and everything is done accurately and correctly. It's not that these things haven't been done, but what they've been doing is that every pay period, if they have a problem, they just deal on that. If they haven't gone back to say, Nolan, you don't have anything that you didn't tell us that you were paid incorrectly or correctly, but we're going to audit your payroll anyway. We're going to make sure that you were paid incorrectly. Or Lindy may say, I was overpaid $25,000, but I'm not telling anybody. So we're going to go find out, and then we're going to talk to Lindy and go, Lindy, $25,000, that's a lot. How are we going to do that? Because it affected your taxes. It affected everything that's already passed. So we're going to start with ML&P right away. And then after that, we're going to keep them on board all through next year until the audits are done. And we're going to go bargaining unit by bargaining unit by bargaining unit. And so when these are done, when the audits are done, they're not going to stay on the payroll. Through attrition, so the body count in human resources won't be 44 for now and forever by adding payroll people. It will be back to 41 when the audits are done.
And this generated a lot of discussion at the last finance work session too, about the frustration with SAP for being a source of payroll errors.
Yep, it is.
I think language about potentially suing the company was thrown around the room.
I think the assembly I know the assembly and there's going to be an executive session to talk about that. Municipal manager, I don't know, guys. There's not much going on in his world. For those of you familiar with it, the funding for our general liability and workman's comp is in here. So that's what that $12 million is about. He's also in charge of EOC and everything. If this is of interest to you, this is Chris Schuette's world. That $12 million, 9.3 of that is the amount that we pay to other people to manage our facilities. Ben Bokey, Sullivan Arena, the museum. We pay them to do that. So that's what's going on in Schuette's world. Parks and Rec. So Parks and Rec, we haven't got this far with the assembly yet. Only Friday was that, 4 hours. This is where we're picking up tomorrow. Parks and Rec, the big news here is the homeless camp cleanup team that's going to work basically through, what did they say, May or April? April through October. That homeless camp cleanup has been a one-time ad every year, and every year we add a little bit more because they add more bodies. In this budget, it's a permanent ad for 14 people dedicated to camp cleanup. So Parks and Rec, it's 14 positions added. They're seasonal. They're not year-round. They're seasonal positions, but that's 14 people for that program.
Lance, can you go back to economic?
Sure.
Hotel motel tax?
Yes, I think that is the portion that I will verify, but that is the portion we give to this Denina Center.
Gotcha. To the Denina.
Yes, because we built the Denina Center, and I'll either find out if it is because we get the hotel, motel.
Like a pass-through?
It comes 3 ways. We get a third, they get a third, and ACDB gets a third.
I have a question here. We have operating gas. I feel like we talked about this before. I just don't remember for the Sullivan Arena, and then there's a few of the other, like Ben Bokey. There's a few of them that regularly operate in deficit. Is that?
So the contracts that we have that are that are getting renegotiated, we have a contract that, and Schuette can give you the details, and I'll give you more information. But the short of it is if Natasha is the manager of, and I like this. This is actually working well. Thanks, Natasha. But Natasha's doing a very good job managing the Sullivan Arena. But you know what? The Aces pull out. So the contract that she had with us said that she's going to make she's guaranteed a certain amount of money to run the business. Aces pull out. She doesn't get the money. The contract says we're going to make her whole to a certain point. Okay? So the loss of those venues have hurt that. Now, we're renegotiating those contracts, because because the amount of venues that can be in the Sullivan Arena and the Benboki, the UAA Center's pulling some activity away, and then there's just not a lot of activity going on. So we're renegotiating that. But right now, in 19 and in 20, we have to fill those holes based on the contracts that were signed in the past when we had other venues going on. Yeah,
And that deficit's only been 3 years now?
I think you're right, Jimmy.
Okay.
Yep.
So historically, it was a good arrangement.
It was. I mean, yeah, it was, and it's still a good arrangement. It's just that they're not. Well, I say it's a good arrangement in a working relationship, but financially, it's not good for us.
Are we thinking that it'll be changed?
It will be changed. It's getting renegotiated.
So will there still be a make whole
I don't know.
provision? Or okay.
I don't know.
Lance, so it was probably maybe a year and a half ago where the assembly did just kind of like a public meeting at Central Lutheran Church about the homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that having the cleanup come out of Parks and Rec versus them being able to do their actual job
It
was a big sore spot for a lot of folks. So why is it still living here?
So what was happening in the past is that Parks Department had I'm going to just use an example. In 2017, they had I'm going to make a number up, $22 million. We approved their budget. And then we told them, we want you to send 10 people and 14 people out and clean up parks or clean up trails. We didn't give them any more money. They spent $180,000 doing that, so something else had to give. Then the next year, we gave them a $22 million, and then we gave them one-time money of $170,000 to keep it going. This year, we're basically saying enough of that. We're just going to give you $350,000 for 14 people for that amount of time. It's part of your budget. So they don't have to give something else up to do that. They don't have to cut less grass or I don't know what, Yeah. So they're going to keep their regular business going, and then they're going to what they have been not doing in the past in order to do this. This is So that's what that's about. Just a little anomaly. You see, like the third one down under Parks and Rec, it says remove one-time East High Pool cost reductions, $138,000. In 2019, after the earthquake, the pool was shut down, so they didn't spend $138,000. The pool is back open, so we give them that money back. Because most one-time things are additions. We give people money. For Parks and Rec, planning, and a couple others, one time we took money away. And then you'll see that we're going to add it back in. Okay? Okay, moving along. Parks. How many of you know Josh Durand? I think Josh is going to he's got some big shoes to fill. Somebody asked me, well, Lance, you put 14 people in Parks. Is that because you need 7 of them to fill John Rada's role? I go, come on. Give Josh a hand here. He'll do a good job. All right. Planning. This is another example of where we took money away one time, and we're going to give it back to them in 20. Michelle basically said, if I have to cut budget next year, take the money away, but don't take the position away. And if I can keep them in 20, because I'm not going to be able to do zoning as fast or platting as fast, but that's the reality. If you want to pick up the game, then I need the money back, and so we did. Real estate, again, Robin's budget is $7.3 million. Of that, $8 million is paying leases. This building, the permit center, all of the other things that we don't own that we pay lease rates. Development services. I think the thing I want to mention here is we primed, in the last couple of years, we primed the code abatement cleanup properties, deteriorated properties program. We gave them $100,000. They spent it. When they clean up the money, when they clean up the properties, we either sell the properties or get reimbursed for the cleanup. So we're not adding more money to that code abatement program. It's rocking and rolling. The library, honestly, the only thing in here is that they had a filled, unbudgeted position, and they wanted it to be budgeted this year. The administration supported that. Actually, there's another piece in here I think that's important. Oh, no, it's not in this slide. Anyway.
How did closing that wing of that Alaska history wing
affect their operating? Honestly, Jed, it did two things. One, there was some flooding damage that went on in there. That will be in the facility side of the house. But I don't know how much it affected their collections. I do know that they spent $90,000 worth of staff time putting books back on shelves. I mean, literally, it took them, I don't know, weeks to clean the library up. Library, they have the big one in there. We talked about this in the past. They have 4 elevators that were built when the library was built that are the same elevators. They're in a different part of the library than the new model. The CFO, this is Alex and Lisa. This is 2 people. That's it. Finance. The finance department is made up of the controller, so it's everybody in accounting, property appraisal, the treasurer, and public finance, who does our investments. They seem like they're departments, but they're all here. So inside the finance, the one thing we're going to do is we're putting money in property appraisal, and it's for 2 things. We have to put $500,000 in to keep the computer system alive that basically manages property assessments for the city. Okay? And then we're going to hire 3 people to do audits, primarily for exemptions. The other thing they're going to be doing is that they found out that we have I don't know what the number is, don't quote me on it, but it's somewhere around 1,500 eligible seniors that they're not applying for or receiving the senior exemption. We're going to tell them, hey, you're missing out on this. Some of them might say, okay, great, I'm not going to apply, because then I have to give you information that I want to give you. And I'm like, wow, how long can I do this, and can I go backwards? We're going to say, yeah, you can start right now, and you can't go backwards. So that's what that's about. Purchasing.
Sorry, real quick.
Go ahead,
Does
Jimmy.
the 49th State Fund fall under finance?
It does. It's managed under public finance, which would be in the finance department. So if you want to know about that, and the Angel Fund, how much is in it. And then the Angel Fund pays for the positions that actually manage the Angel Fund, I believe. There's 2, maybe 3. Okay. Moving along, purchasing. Nothing, really. They got some labor adjustments they want to make. Okay, I'm going to switch, and then we'll go to utilities. Was that the last general government department? Or was there IT? All right, let me do that one, and I'll be quick.
So SAP is up and running and
Yep,
rolling back.
Yep. SAP is in IT. So, Carla, you'll see that at the bottom of IT, they have something that no other department has. They have a $10 million depreciation and amortization. That almost all of that $10 million is we start depreciating SAP because it's live. In the past, that number was like $2 million. And it's depreciation of the computers, this stuff in the room, all across the municipality. That technology depreciates, so it's not cash we appropriate to Alyssa, who's in charge of IT, but we do show the depreciation of that in their budget. Most of that is in IT.
Over 5, over 3,
Over 15.
15?
SAP is over 15 years.
Okay.
I think,
10 million is a lot. If
I
it's
think-
over 15, seems like.
well, we spent 80 million. I'll find the breakdown, because it's not just SAP, it's everything else.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. So in SAP's world, they have a capital budget, but it's not bond, because we can't bond for computers. So what happens is we put $3 million in their operating budget, and then they change that to a capital asset. We basically create we give them a capital account, and they buy computers. That's what that's about. They buy more than computers, but I'm trying to simplify it. But maybe another point to Carla's. Susie has been doing, made a lot of effort, her and her team, to wean ourselves off the cost of the contractors and bringing the people in-house and they manage it. And a lot of the people that we've hired were our original support staff subject matter experts. So they're not necessarily additional bodies, but they have the same amount of expertise as the contractors. Brought them in-house here. Okay, the attorneys, it's a bunch of lawyers, we pay them. The mayor's office, I think $650,000 of that $1.8 million is to community grants.
And the mayor's donated his salary, right?
I don't know.
Just
I know, it's a fair question. So this is us at OMB. We have a one-time hit of money. We help the utilities with rate cases. It's not a for sure thing every single year, but we did a rate case for, I think, their water utility last year, and I think they have one for their wastewater coming up, so they want our help again, so they're going to pay us. That's not tax money. AWU pays us for that, but we help them. Assembly, this is actually going to be quite interesting when we get to this part. The Assembly asked for a big chunk of money, and we didn't give them very much. But anyway, so we treated them like we did everybody else. One-time money stuff out, one-time stuff that's a requirement that got moved in. They have a lease agreement with vote by mail. It's paid for out of them. That's the facility down in Ship Creek. We got to pay for that. They have an audit they got to do. They pay for that. And then they have some interpreter services. Those contracts costs are going up. We all benefit from that one.
they asked for a chunk of money for.
I'm sorry, Carla?
They asked for a chunk of money for.
For
what I'm looking at there, the changes.
You're looking at the stuff we took, or we accepted, but they asked for some additional salary adjustments. They asked for some AV equipment upgrades here, downstairs on the first floor. We're actually trying to work that with Susie so that we don't have to add that. They had some modifications to room expansions downstairs they wanted to do, but basically light construction. So I do know that one of the things we are looking at is they have a need that's not included here that we discovered for an elections coordinator. That's actually probably one of their highest priorities. Equal Rights Commission, internal audit, honestly. You know why that number's going down so much? Two big things. Oh, and I should have mentioned this at purchasing. You guys may have caught this. That $40,000 number, it's one time. We had somebody retire who had $40,000 of cash-in leave. They weren't budgeted for that. So we gave them one-time bit of money. And Carla's mouth is open.
Yeah.
I learned a valuable lesson when I was at Transit. I had two 30-plus year employees retire in the same year. I had $110,000 of cash-in leave I had to pay, 60 for one and 45 for the other. I didn't budget for it, and I had to suck it up. So we tell departments, if Lindy has been in the municipality for 31 years and she's got $80,000 of cash-in leave, let us know. Maybe we'll consider it as a one-time expense, because next year in purchasing, that number goes away. All right, guys, I don't know if we're going to get through everything. Instead of pulling up, can we walk through the utilities on paper?
That number, is that part of the bargaining agreement?
Nope.
So,
well,
every position I've ever held, it gets capped out at some point.
It does.
You
Mine's
can't
capped out.
accrue it.
Yeah, mine's capped out. So, the fire departments, theirs are capped out at 400 and something hours, but they have annual leave, and then they have can have sick leave, and I think at the time that individual was sick leave, because you can transfer every year if you're allowed 480 hours, you can move 80 hours into sick leave, and then that doesn't turn into a pumpkin. It just grows, but you can only add 80 hours in. It's the way our policies work. That individual had been here for 37 years. He had like 1,200, oh no, that guy. That wasn't bad. Our previous internal auditor, he had $110,000 of leave on the books we had to cash out when he left. Well, I'm going to have a lot because I don't take any time off. Lila and my team's like, Lance, you got to leave the building every once in a while. So,
Should make them cash out some every year, which is what we do.
and we do
Make
too.
people
We do.
cash out
We
some every
do.
year.
They're-
And you
they're-
still have?
Yes, because what we can do is there's a certain amount of cash out leave that you have to cash out. You can only keep 480 hours on the books. But I have the ability to take, if I have more than that, to put 80 hours in my cash in leave. Because if I cash it out, then it just bumps me, it screws my taxes up. What I need to do is take my time off, but I don't have time for that. So let's talk about utilities. Real quick, guys. I'm just gonna, do you have 5 minutes? We can rock through the utilities. And I don't want to shortchange the utilities because there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
And pardon my French.
And you have
That's
the room
mad.
till 1:30.
I have the room until 1:30?
Yeah, the next meeting's at 1:30.
Oh. Okay. But I only have you guys till 1. Let me just say this about the utilities. We took this year to spend a lot of time in the utilities scrubbing 2 things. Their equity, primarily how much equity they had held in capital projects they were never going to build. The reason that's important is that screws up their debt-to-equity ratio, which makes it look like they're in a bad shape. We spent a lot of time scrubbing that for the utilities, except for ML&P, because that's its own animal. But I'll try to highlight what's going on inside the utilities. And I appreciate your guys' patience, because this is like a lot of information. But again, what I wanted you guys to do is if any of this stuff strikes your fancy and you have a department, or you think, God, that's pretty terrible, Lance, there's nothing, or it's pretty easy, there's nothing bad going on. But I need you guys, and I'll follow Nolan's lead. What do you guys want to dive into? But let's get into the utilities. I'll walk through them. Oh, shit. Previous. ACDA. So this is Andrew Halcrow's team over at ACDA. They are a branch of the municipality. To be honest, I don't know as much about ACDA as I do about the other utilities, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But if you have some interest, I will get back with you. But I could simply say that there's not a whole lot changing from one year to the next.
Their revenue went down, though? Oh.
Go ahead, Carla.
No, I was just questioning why their revenue went down. That's unusual, seems like. It says their parking revenue went down, actually. Well, their lease space revenue went down, too.
I will find out. You don't know?
Maybe that's just a reflection of what is actual from,
It may be.
from the
There may be.
previous
Yes.
year.
Yep. That may be.
Okay.
So, these slides, I'm sorry guys, are in a bit of a different order than yours. So I'm going to go to I'm just going to do the reconciliations, and then I'm going to, this is the reconciliation. So in AWU, they have a water utility and a wastewater utility. I have to tell you, inside AWU, there's really no big changes. They have a rate increase, I think, in one of their utilities, and they're going to be paying a dividend of 1.6 on the water side, but not on the wastewater. Jimmy, thank you.
Thank you, so there you go.
Yep.
Those meetings,
There's really nothing amazing about their capital budget. I will tell you this. Nothing related to the earthquake expenses are in this budget. That's separate.
Lance, when you say that the water utility is going to pay a $1.6 million dividend,
Yep.
does that mean that they're just paying that into the general fund, or does that go to customers?
No,
or?
it goes to us. It goes to it's a cash in the door from the utilities, outside the tax cap,
Right.
above the MUSA payment.
Okay.
So, Tasha, thank you. So in this one here, Jed, you will see in 2020 they're going to pay us a total of $10 million in MUSA dividends, gross receipts, $10 million. A portion of that is MUSA, and then in their revenues, they're going to pay us 1.6 in dividend. Their MUSA is their MUSA is pretty small. It's 460,000. I'm looking at, what slide am I looking at, Lila, for them? For this slide?
I got it. I think it's like it's on the second page on the top.
Yeah. See, what else? What is your interest in the utilities? Just general knowledge, or do you have some specifics?
What are some big changes?
So I think the big changes are there will be utility rate increases that for solid waste services 6.25 and 5% for collections and disposal. The Assembly passed that last night or last Tuesday. That's in part of their budget. There are no rate increases for let's see. No rate increases on the water utility, and I don't think there's a rate increase on the wastewater. Nope, no rate increases. The other thing that AWU is doing, their capital program is half of what it was last year. And the reason is they're trying to modify their debt to equity ratio. They're trying to get that a little bit more stable. They had a $50 million capital program last year. They have a $25 million capital program this year. And it's all about their equity. That's a big change. Merrill Field, I don't think there's anything that is big in Merrill Field except that they did raise their rates. They have not been raising their rates. And we had a lot of discussion about that. They did raise their rates through 19. They go effective January 1. They're built in here. If you own a plane, it costs you a little bit more to park it. Solid waste. Honestly, the thing that's going on in solid waste is they have a plan to rebuild the transfer station, and they have rate increases both in their disposal and their collections to help that.
Did they end up acquiring that property?
Yeah, they did. So the property that Jed's speaking of is the piece on the other side of 58th Avenue. The port, honestly, the thing about the port, I think, is, other than the cement petroleum terminal and the projects that are going on down there, their budgets, their operating budget is literally mirrored. It's all about their capital program. I'll get to their capital program. I mean, and their operating side is like nothing. Merrill Field, there's really nothing sexy in Merrill Field except they're trying to get themselves out of an operating hole. And we've been helping them do that. So I don't know if the Merrill Field drives is of a big interest to you. Solid waste, I talked about these. They're meeting their landfill closure liabilities. Here's this slide here. I don't know which one it is on yours, but there's the rate increase for the disposal. There's no big change in their operating budget. Again, the earthquake is not part of this. And of all of the earthquake things going on in the municipality, they're the ones with the biggest claim that we'll have with FEMA. It's over $10 million. They lost a building at the regional landfill. They lost their maintenance and admin building at the landfill.
Just becomes part of the solid waste.
That's true, it does.
Yeah.
Just push it.
The transport for getting rid of it is not very far. Yeah, take a look at this stuff, guys. I'm not trying to undersell it, but I know we've been at it for a long time.
And they'll continue to do a budget for ML&P until sales expire.
Yep. ML&P is as if we own it. The one thing I'll talk about highlights for ML&P is this. In the budget, not so much in ML&Ps, because, but as it relates to ML&Ps, but Carla's right. ML&P, we're operating this like we're gonna operate it for, like if the sale did not go through. That's exactly how it works. One of the things that I will point out for ML&P is that they are a part owner of a Beluga gas field. The amount of revenue that ML&P gets from the sale of gas is going down. And it's because Hillcorp doesn't have the gas to sell. Hillcorp manages the field. So they're in charge of drilling wells and keeping the field alive. They're not doing enough of that, so there's not enough gas to go to for anybody that uses gas, but out of that field. So when you look at one of their revenue statements, it looks like their revenues are going way down. It's because a significant amount of their revenues comes from the sale of gas from that field. It's not there.
Just the depletion of the field?
No, it's not so much the depletion of the field. It's just that they either have wells shut down, or they need to expand or improve the service to get the gas out. In part, it may be more wells, but that may be it.
I think you said earlier that you were doing a department by department audit on labor.
Yep.
Correct? And you said ML&P was first?
Yep.
And is that because you think that, not you, but they think that money is owed? Because it's
to employees? So this
no
is
money
just,
is owed back to the muni from the employee. Because if that's the case, why didn't...
So we do audits all the
road?
time. We do audits all the time. It's not like we're not doing any audits. It's just that we do audits and then we get to a break fix for APDA or AMEA. What we're doing for the audits is that in preparation of the final transactions of ML&P, the IBEW employees and the non-rep employees that work for ML&P, we want to make sure that their pay has been correct before those individuals leave and move to CEA, those that are moving. We want to make sure that that's cleaned up so it's not a payroll problem on our books. We know that it's right. That's why we're starting with IBEW ML&P.
Okay.
The other thing I'll talk about, and the last thing I'll mention, and this may be something that you guys, I know is going to come up on the 30th related to ML&P. It's not this budget related to ML&P. We have in our budget that the assumption the sale is going to be final sometime in 2020. We also are using the same principal amount of money that we're going to get in return. We're going to pay debt, and then we're going to put a significant amount in the trust. We're going to gain interest off the trust. The assembly wants to know, and the assembly gets to decide, maybe we don't put money in savings. Maybe we pay off more debt. And then which debt do we pay off? I personally think that conversation is a good conversation to have, but I think making those choices now is not good. We should find out, I think the safest bet right now until the sale is done is that we're going to get some amount of money that goes into the savings account. Right now, the interest we earn off the savings account is more than the interest on the debt.
Oh, well, that makes sense then.
Exactly. So that's why we did what we're doing. But the assembly wants to hash that out. That will be the art of the conversation on the 30th. So,
I will attend that and report back to everyone else.
So for you, Nolan, do you want me to send out an email? How do you want me to proceed?
So I think what you were talking about is somehow we divide up the departments amongst ourselves and each focus on a couple of them, something to that effect.
Yep.
I'd open it up to. So, and you said kind of there's two main ways we could do that.
Yeah, there's two ways. Carla could pick. She could pick planning and fire, and she just because they're her favorites. And then Jed could pick planning and transit. This just so happens we have planning double checked, but the difference is that transit's really big and fire's really big, but planning's not. But if you have an interest in the planning department, you should. That's one way to do it. You just pick them at random. The other one is, he says, Carla, you're going to do police, you're going to do the real estate, and then you're going to do the library. A big one, a medium one, and a small one. So I think this round, given the time and the relatively new members of all the bodies, let them choose their own adventure.
Yeah,
but it's up to you.
I agree. I think, it should be signing. who's got interest in, do folks here have like interest in particular departments that you want to kind of claim?
I mean, I definitely have interest in transit.
I have interest in parks or planning.
Okay, there we go.
I also sort of have an interest in PM&E, but that's a big one too.
Honestly, guys, if you have an interest, as your time permits, come spend an hour with me. I can answer all of your questions.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only 9 of you. That's one day for me.
See, I'm interested. I'm interested in fire.
Okay, good. I'm glad someone is.
Are you like, we're paying you to sleep? Is that what you're saying? We're paying you to sleep?
I'm not going into it with that. I just think it's a huge budget item that deserves its own special attention. We're not going into it with that too much. But
I will say that previously, in the previous BAC, one of the things they took on was the fire department.
Right.
So it has been looked at a little closer than the other departments, the most recent, I think. But I'm not saying that it doesn't need more attention.
yeah, and that's true. I know that it has been looked at. But I think it has been a little while. And then the other thing too is that I hope someone is interested in police, just because police and fire being such big budgets.
I mean, I think at some point, if you have an interest in that, I mean, I wouldn't give Caitlin police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would, some of the folks that have been here a while, Jonathan maybe, or
I was thinking I could stick Jonathan on police.
I think the problem to me when I think about fire and police is because of the collective bargaining agreements and stuff. Sometimes I feel like it's futile. I mean, I hate to say that, but sometimes I feel that way.
It's not futile.
Oh, good.
Part of my everyday job is to make sure that we don't think it's futile. Because, as I told an assembly member the other night, I give them $100 million. I only ask that they manage to that number.
Okay.
So, not more, not less. We can debate whether or not 100 is too much, but if we're going to give them a certain amount of money, let's let them manage to that amount of money. And then, so I do think fire, and Carla, you said health and planning, and Jed, you said
I said Parks and Rec and planning.
Parks and Rec and planning.
Oh. Yeah, I have like maybe 3 minutes a week of spare time, but I mean, I'll look into police if you need somebody, or maybe there's 2 of us that work on it together. Or
Yeah, I mean,
wherever you think the need
I mean,
is.
I think probably more than one person can work on some of the bigger
Yeah.
departments. I would, because I'd rather have more focus on. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but I think in a lot of ways it makes sense to have more people on a couple of big departments, and even on a couple of small ones, even if we don't completely get to them. I think that's okay if we're talking about some of these that are a few $1 million out of $500 some million budget. Not to diminish their importance, but we just have to look at the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind switching from the 2 I picked to police, and maybe, you know, the first thing I would probably do is sit down with you and figure out what needs to be done. But if there's somebody else on the commission that wants to look at it with me, even better.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm better if I'm accountable to somebody else. If they're like, let's meet at this time and let's do.
And Jed, which one did you say?
I mean, I'll take a look at transit. I don't necessarily know if it's our intention to just like really crack into these and start tinkering with numbers.
I think just for you guys, you know, at your
Just to
level,
get more familiar
they're
with
policy
how it
level
works.
questions. You know, really, I mean, are we doing the right thing? Are they doing a good job? It's not necessarily. It's a combination. Do you have a sense that they're doing a good job with the money that they have? Do you have some sense of things that they ought to be thinking about that they don't have? And I do think PM&E is a good one because of the bonds. I mean, if you have an interest in bonds, that's the place you want to be, is at PM&E.
Is that one you wanted also, Jed?
Yeah.
Lindy, what did you do in a prior life?
I was gonna say, I'm pretty indifferent between all of them, so.
Hi, this is Lindsay. I'm going to have to hop off the call here, but I would say just plug me in wherever you need me. I don't have a
Okay.
or the EWU rate case or anything like that.
Okay. Put her on one of those. She has the expertise. No,
Sorry?
no, I was just joking, Lindsay.
Okay. So, yeah, just, I would maybe try to stay away from those areas, just given that I work in regulatory at STAR.
Okay. Any preferences at all?
How about maintenance and operations, Lindsay?
Yeah, that would be great, actually.
Because that has the fleet, that has the utilities, that has a lot of important things going on in that world.
Sure.
Okay, and Jed's got transit, and Carla, you said parks. We need somebody, or health, right? What did you say?
Parks.
We need somebody on health.
Parks and planning. How about on police? Because if you've already got 2 on your plate.
Well, no, I was going to dump those 2 to take police,
Oh, okay.
but I'll keep them if you want to hand police to somebody else.
Because Lindy, would you have interest in police?
Sure.
Okay, because then maybe you on that.
So with that, I'm going to have to hop off. Thanks
All right,
a lot.
thank you.
All right.
We'll send out the first ones in your slides. Transit, police, fire, streets, transit, health. You guys have to look at those. They're the animals.
Yeah. So
They're the animals.
I would team up with someone on health too.
see, so Jonathan might be a good one on health because he's done
I'll reach out.
consulting work on healthcare. And so we really shouldn't be sending like group emails.
I think if you guys are going to work together,
Yeah.
you can totally do
But I
that.
mean, like the whole group, in order to so I can reach out to the folks that don't.
I'll find out, but I think that you can. You're not dealing with a resolution. You're just.
Okay.
I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll verify.
So I like the idea of sticking Jonathan on health.
We'll give it to him.
Yeah.
He's not here.
So
And-
there we go.
Honestly, if you want to switch me over to any of those that Lance just named off, I'm perfectly okay with whichever. I'm perfectly fine with
So we'll balance it out.
Yeah.
That would be good, guys.
Is there a cookie in one of those? Throw it my way.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks a bunch, Lance.
Thanks for lunch.
If you don't have anything to do, you can hear this at a much slower pace for a introductory class.
You doing this tomorrow?
I'm doing it all tomorrow. We're going to start with at 11 o'clock,
Oh, I wanted you to. I
and we're
love
going to do
catching.
parks
Thank you so much.
through internal water.